Good morning and welcome to today's training. My friends, we are jumping into what's called the relationship bare minimums. So, over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be giving you a sneak peek, a literal series of trainings in the relationship strategy to help you understand how to build happy relationships in your life post codependency. So if you're new to me, I'm Burtcher, and I help codependents rediscover their happiness after codependency by helping them heal their trauma, discover who they are, and create happy relationships. Now, before we get started today, I need to share this out to the community really quick. So I gotta click a few buttons. If you're looking for a shelter on the internet here on the digital age, join the community. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notices, because I publish videos usually 3 to 5 times a week, depending on what I'm doing. So I'm going to share this out to the community. It's where you can find guidance, support. You can find out you're not alone in the journey. You can also see how to progress forward. I have several people who've been in the community for a long time who've never worked with me personally, have never been in any of my courses, that have transformed their lives just based on what is shared there, both by myself and by the other badasses in the community. So there's a lot of power in that. So I'm going to get that shared out here real quick. Boom, there we be. All right. Good morning. It's nice to see you all. I am happy that you're here today, as we're going to talk about what's called the relationship bare minimum. So one of the big challenges I encountered with codependency is I had no idea what was required for a relationship, that there was actually essential factors that needed to be present in the relationship so it could succeed. I went in with the fantasy that anybody could make it work. And that's kind of the magic there. I need to change something here. Boom, there we go. So this is kind of the wild thing about relationships, is that they are a product, a result of a very specific set of factors being in place long before you ever meet the individual. That's kind of the trick here with this. So let me check something here, because we're not getting a whole lot of activity yet. Oh, there we go. It's working. All right. So that's kind of the magic here. With relationship bare minimums, they start to bring out this idea that there needs to be criteria before you go and discover who this person is. So some background here. My approach to relationships, especially when they're being created, is to discover the person. Most people approach dating from the angle of commitment. Like, oh, I'm going to date this person, I'm going to make it work, and we're going to get married, and we're going to have a committed real life. That's not what it's about. Commitment is discovered as you get to know the person, but it isn't the point. The point is to discover who they are and how they align with you, how they align with your well-being and with your happiness. That leads you to happy, healthy relationships, fundamentally. But you got to know what your criteria is. So yesterday I talked a fair bit about what my 3-step model of the what, how, and who of relationships. But before you even get to what, how, and who, we have to get to what's called relationship bare minimum. Because again, it comes back to that fantasy I was talking about. This idea that, oh, I could meet somebody, and because I like them or I have attraction to them or affection for them or something, we can make a relationship work, right? It can just work because feelings denote compatibility. And that's not true. That was a hard, expensive lesson to learn. That what I felt did not necessarily delineate compatibility or fulfillment or satisfaction. I have loved many people whom I have not been compatible with. And I imagine you have too. So love is not the reason we keep a relationship. Compatibility is. Love and attraction and interest is the reason we explore it. But now we have to have some very solid criteria before we even get to the exploration stage. And I call this the relationship bare minimums. And there's 8 of them. And the reason we want bare minimums is so we can filter people out that are not intrinsically healthy for our well-being. That is essential to this. So Renee, I'm not sure what's going on with the audio. because on my end it's coming in strong and clear. So it may be on your end there. You might check your volume or something. But if anybody else is having a problem with it, let me know. The real, so back to those minimums, we have to first protect and value our well-being. So there's two priorities all codependents need to put into place to make sure everything is working appropriately for them. First, they need to be honest with themselves. We have to be honest with our experience, what we feel, what's going on, what reality is. And then second, we have to value our well-being. Our well-being is essential to ourselves, to our happiness. If we don't value our well-being and we're not honest with ourselves, we're going to lapse into these cycles where things do not work out well for us. We're going to repeat the abuse cycles. We're going to repeat the neglect cycles. We're going to get into relationships with people who are not ideal for us, who are toxic for us, who are incompatible for us. We're going to end up tolerating things that don't need to be tolerated. And that's really, really important. So with those two fundamentals in place, then we need to filter people out. And that's what the bare minimum, the relationship bare minimums actually do for us. So I'm going to talk about them now. I'm really just kind of off today, aren't I? So here we go. There's 8 bare minimums. And these are based on, they're derived from Brene Brown's Braving Model for Trust. So in reality, these 8 minimums establish the premise for trust. Because without trust, you don't have a relationship. Trust is essential to the container in which you operate in. Okay, the relationship depends on trust because trust allows vulnerability, it allows connection, it allows attachment, it allows exposure in a safe and controlled way. So these 8 minimums are essential. And the person that you're dating, the person that you encounter with this, and you yourself must show up with these already present. This is the bare minimum. Literally, if they're underneath this, because they're toxic, abusive, unavailable, immature, whatever it might be, then the relationship is a no-go regardless of how everything else feels. Because you're not going to have a safe relationship. You're not going to have a happy relationship. You're going to be in a drama cycle again. Okay, so these 8 minimums are actually linked. I linked them above on Facebook, below on YouTube, so you can print it out, put it on your fridge, and give yourself permission to deserve these 8 minimums in your world, because that is the standard you start from. So first one's boundaries. So boundaries, how do they respect boundaries? Do they acknowledge them? Do they honor them? Do you honor your boundaries? Do you honor their boundaries? Do you acknowledge them? Are you able to recognize those boundaries that they have and the ones that you have? Boundaries are essential because they help us understand our relationship to this individual. Now, you're not in an intimate relationship with them yet. You haven't built trust yet. So boundaries are going to be a natural result or effect of dating the individual and getting to know them, so you're going to understand who they are. Some ways to see if a person actually respects boundaries is to see how they respond to people's no. When someone says no to them, what do? Do they push it? Do they bargain? Do they whine? Do they complain? Or they're like, okay, that's cool. I respect that. No biggie. And then they let it go. See, boundary is essential to respect and to consent and autonomy. So number 1's boundary. Second one's reliability. This is about predictability in their responses and their behaviors. What can I predict they'll be based on who I know them to have been, right? So if I've known Sally for 10,000 years, I'm going to be able to make predictions about what Sally will do when I say or do a certain thing. So that would be reliability. Accountability. So they take accountability for mistakes. They take accountability for their choices and their actions. They take accountability for the impact it has on people. So they empathize. They care. They identify their accountability. They hold you accountable in kind and direct ways. They expect accountability because accountability creates trust. It creates a sense of, hey, I can bring a complaint or a concern up and they're going to respond to it in a warm or at least responsible way, which we can have a discussion and make adjustments with. So, okay, cool. Thanks, Renee. Fourth one's privacy. Privacy is about the things you share with them are maintained in privacy. The things they share with you are maintained in privacy. The things that are private to you that you want to preserve just with you, you preserve with you. You allow them to have their privacy, whether that's emotional, mental, physical, or some sort of object like a journal, things like that. Privacy is maintained and preserved and respected. Integrity. This is where they keep their word and their words and their actions line up. It's also when those things don't work, they move into accountability and make a correction. Okay, so integrity has two functions, or it shows up in two ways. Keeping one's word, and then correcting when the word and the action don't align. If you don't have integrity, you're not going to have accountability. And that's the end of it. When these two factors are breached, you can't have trust, because there's no way to know what they're doing, what they mean by what they say. There's no way to understand where they're coming from, whether or not it's safe to believe them. So integrity is a huge, huge issue. One way to look at integrity to see it happen is to see what they do when they don't keep their word. So do they take accountability? And it's also about seeing what they do. If they say A and they do A on a consistent basis, boom. Consistent means 8 or 9 times out of 10. That's the key there. Because we're all human, we're all going to screw it up. That's why accountability is in there. I'm going to screw this up. That's okay. But 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, and they're consistent in showing up, we got this. We got that. So then we also have what's called acceptance. This is about maintaining an openness or a positive, warm regard towards you. They want to understand you. There's non-judgment. There isn't there isn't a onus or ill intent held against you. This also bleeds into number 7, which is positive, warm regard, which is when you make mistakes or you make choices that upset or hurt or confuse them, they're not going to think you're doing it to them deliberately. That they're like, it's a mistake, not a big deal. They afford you that understanding because they're willing to see that you're a human being and that they're willing to work with you, and you are willing to do the same with them. You're willing to accept them as they are. You're not going to judge them for what they are or how they show up. You're not going to condemn them for it, is really what that's saying. Because you are going to make judgments. You're going to say, well, does this align with me? Does this not? How does this fit with what I need? Things like that. And then the final one, number 8, empathy. Do they show up with empathy? Do they care about their impact on you? Do they care about how you feel? Are they concerned with your emotional experience? About your day? Or is this just like, they contact you and they're a little frisky, or do they want to be engaged in your world? And then do they respect your boundaries in that engagement? These are the bare minimums. You can't have a functional, happy, healthy relationship without these actively in place. So they're, for me at least, they're mandatory. So when I was out dating, I was looking for people to see how they showed up in these ways. And I was also making sure I showed up that way. Because this is a both and kind of thing. We've got to both do this. So these bare minimums allow you to filter people out of your life and filter people into your life based on how they show up. Now, this takes a little time. This is the rub with discovery here, is it requires time plus experience equals exposure. So the second you see that they're not reliable, the second you see that they lack integrity, that's where, or they don't take accountability, they lack empathy, they breach boundaries, that's where the game ends. Boom. Because, and there's one thing, I have a very high standard here, guys. You're dating adults, not children. So they should be showing up as an adult. If they don't, then you don't have to raise them. You're not their mother. Okay? This is especially common with men these days. They a lot of them tend to want the woman to do the labor in the relationship, and they need to do their own component of that labor. They need to do the emotional, physical time labor and show up and invest themselves and be vulnerable and show up with these principles, because that's what a real human being, a man and a woman, show up as. That's what maturity is, or at least that's components of it. So I don't recommend dating people that you feel like you have to raise. All right. Sarah asks a question: do you recommend? So you're recommending to leave sex out of dating? Well, that depends. What's your relationship with sex? Because if sex escalates commitment, then yeah, I would leave it out of dating for a little bit. I would work more towards preserving your well-being and your safety before getting sexually engaged with someone, if that's something that puts you into an emotional or mental state of connection or of commitment to them. So you're gonna have to work out where that belongs in your dating experience, because one, you're the one that has to live with the consequence of it, and you're the one that has to it's your territory to govern there. So that's really an individual thing, because some people it's not an issue and others it is. So I would go with it that way. Okay, guys, creating a happy relationship builds on this as your foundation. You got to know yourself. You got to have those bare minimums, and then you put the what, the how, and who on top of that, and that's where you start to discover what you're really looking for in your compatibility, which leads to your sense of satisfaction and happiness in a relationship. So you got that link above on Facebook, below on YouTube. You can click that, and then you can download it, print it out. Make this I use this for everything. It's part of how I govern my own world. It's how I choose friends. It's how I choose business associates. It's how I work with clients. It's how it's one reason why I chose my girlfriend. She shows up these ways very, very consistently. It's what I expect from other adults. If they don't have it, I'm not going to play with them. So this is a fundamental to just healthier relationships in our world. So there you go, guys. I appreciate you. Now, enrollment for the happiness strategy is open. We started at 50 seats. We are down to 33 seats. This will sell out before the 6th. It starts December 6th. It's taught twice on that day at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. It will be taught that way going forward. It currently is 16 weeks long, where I'm going to teach you your what, your how, and your who, and then I'm going to lead you through discovering compatibility through experience, and then being able to grow happiness in that relationship that you're creating, whether it's a friendship, business association, a romantic relationship, whatever it might be in your world. The link is above to Facebook to enroll, and below on YouTube to enroll, and you can jump in. Now, I know that COVID and our current economic system, our situations have impacted us a lot. So if this is something you really, really want to be a part of, but the current pricing is out of your reach, don't hesitate to reach out. There's a link above for answers. It's called Community Answers. You click on that link, you can submit a question there. You can show up on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Talk to me directly. We can work out something there. Okay? So there is a way if you want this. Okay, I appreciate you guys. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. Keep yourself safe out there. And I will see you guys in our next video.